Everybody's already seated. We got that part down. Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad that you carved out some time today. We'd like to welcome you today to our feature presentation, Fits Like a Glove, the Perfect Pairing of Textiles and Furniture. The Business and Institutional Furniture Manufacturers Association, BIFMA, and the Association of Contract Textiles, ACT, are pleased to be co-hosting this featured presentation here at NeoCon. My name is Jennifer Womack. I'm with BIFMA in Outreach and Learning, and it is my pleasure to introduce the leaders of these two organizations to make just a few introductory remarks. Please join me on stage, Deirdre Jimenez, President and CEO of BIFMA, and Janan Rabia, Executive Director of ACT.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janan. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I wanted to just tell you a couple things about the association. So we've been around since 1985, and we are the definitive resource for contract textile information and education. Designers probably know us best for our ACT voluntary performance guidelines and the icons that are represented on the back of the fabric cards. I'm really pleased to be here with BIFMA, and I want to thank Megan for moderating the panel. And all three panelists, I think, is really exciting. The companies that they represent are both members of BIFMA and ACT. So I think that's exciting and shows the natural collaboration between fabric and furniture.
It's great. It's great to be here. And I'd like to just first take a moment to thank Jennifer from BIFMA and Lynn Willis from ACT for curating this event. It took a lot of time and effort behind the scenes, and I think you're going to all really appreciate it. Textiles and furniture go together like peanut butter and jelly. They're great as individual condiments, but when you put them together and they're paired correctly, wonderful things happen. BIFMA has long enjoyed collaborating with other industry associations, and our history with ACT is no different. Whether it's spaces of work, healing, learning, or leisure, we all recognize the important role that furnishings play in supporting human activities. Next to your digital device, the furniture you're sitting in is probably the other product you most interact with. We come to Chicago this time of year to celebrate design, but as design professionals, we know that design is both performance and aesthetics, and performance is not an automatic given. From safety to sustainability, from functionality to wellness, investments are being made by manufacturers and suppliers to continuously improve their products and innovate towards the future. Through event programs and CEUs, it has been our goal to raise the awareness of product performance, innovation, and artistry. BIFMA's collaboration with ACT marks not only our historical relationship and our future goals, but signals common technical and artistic objectives we have for the industry. There is an intricate relationship between textiles and furniture, and when you do it right, it fits like a glove. With that, Jennifer, let's get started.
All right, thank you both very much. I'm not your stand-up routine, I promise. We'll get these folks up on stage. I'm going to do a quick introduction of Megan, our moderator, and then she will take care of introducing the rest. So maybe why don't you just hold off, and then I'll leave, and they'll come on, and we'll really get started. So Megan Skaalen is a senior principal in the workplace and a workplace studio leader at SmithGroup in their San Diego office. So we're delighted that she had the opportunity to travel to NeoCon and participate in this. She's quite uniquely suited, actually, to today's conversation. She is passionate about building authentic relationships and creating compelling narratives. She also hosts a panel series through SmithGroup called Peaks and Valleys, where she engages remarkable individuals in leadership and storytelling discussions. On behalf of ACT and BIFMA, we're delighted to have Megan lead us through what I'm sure is going to be some really engaging storytelling today. So with that, I would invite Megan and all of our panelists to please join me on stage.
Hello, everybody. You can tell it's day 2 of NeoCon because I've hit my word quota and my voice has gone with it as well. So I am so delighted to be here today. You have to give kudos anytime there's a great title to any kind of discussion, so fits like a glove. It's a great way for us to lead off the conversation today. I'm so excited to introduce these ladies next to me. There we go. I'll wait for the slides to catch up with me. There we go. So first we have Shantel McGowan. So she is not only the VP of Textiles and Wall Coverings for Momentum, but she has, through her leadership, the accolades that they have received at Momentum and having multiple products in the permanent collection of the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum, as well making quite a splash this year at NeoCon with those incredible tote bags. Shantel? And then we have Andrea Nelson. So she is with Haworth. She has been involved in not only the materials, colors, finishes, took a dip in marketing for a little bit, but with her keen eye and sense of style, as we can see here. She has been a big part of kind of the storytelling piece at Haworth, and as well with her background in interior architecture, as well as industrial design, she can really take a holistic approach to her role. And then we have Maggie Keilhauer. So Maggie this year really has been focused on the new rebrand of Keilhauer, as well as the sustainable story, and really expressing to everybody that they've been listening and what their story is. And so she is the product manager, and she has had many roles at Keilhauer. But we are so privileged to have her here today because of the numerous winning products that she has been part of launching, and then as well as the countless textiles and partner cards that she has been part of. So thank you, Maggie. All right, well, let's have a conversation of the influential role of textiles and furniture product design and performance. So we're at this really amazing opportunity to have the conversation where it's this interaction of not only art and design and science. So I'd be really excited to hear and kind of start with talking about your creative process and really explore the front end creative process of what you do. So Andrea, I'd love to start with you and hear about how you start.
Yes, inspiration. Gathering it from everywhere, art and design, architecture with different, motifs and patterns and textures that you see in different building materials, such as wood or concrete or steel. Nature. I mean, I'm so inspired by nature. Lichen on a tree with the different color combinations, or bark, or the symmetry in a flower, and how that translates into, patterns and texture and whatnot.
And is your creative process pretty organic?
It is. I mean, it's very much about, the projects that we're working on, what the market drivers are, if there's specific products that we're working on, and really designing the textiles to work with those products.
Yeah. And then Shantel, you sit a little bit upstream and kind of as far as your creative development. What's your process like for inspiration?
I think it's really similar to what she already mentioned, but what I would add is for Momentum, and especially for me personally, I find a lot of inspiration from partnerships. So finding that human element in design, so looking at artists and helping to bring their work. So what you see on the screen is Shantel Martin was one of our collaborations that we partnered with, and really just being able to take the story of the artist and bring that into a textile has been so important for inspiring designers and keeping a really fresh, new perspective. And then also, just because we're talking about this partnership with furniture and textiles, so one of the things is as furniture becomes more like softened curves, that really plays a role in what we have to pick for how we're building a fabric. So as more curves, more rounded edges happen, you know, sometimes nylons and polyesters don't want to work with those curves. So that may be where we add in a new wool product, because wool's going to be able to take the curves differently. So sometimes we're picking how we build things and being inspired just based on what the manufacturers are building. So we have to be able to come up with designs and constructions that will work on their furniture. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, like, we're big believers in design thinking. So if you've been doing your job for a long time and you know how to do it well, sometimes you start cutting those corners of not doing that full like design and creative process, and just, you know, make sure you allow yourself to do that. And we try to maintain that as well, because you know your job well, and sometimes you want to just skip steps. But it's really great to be around young people coming out of college who have just recently practiced what is design thinking and how do you work through that process. So keep doing that process, and that's something I really keep trying to promote in our team.
Oh, that's great to hear and such a great reminder. So for textiles used on furniture, they're typically designated as being part of a manufacturer's standard. So offering graded in or customer's own material called COM, of course. Mm-hmm. So Andrea, in your role at Haworth, you form a bridge in pairing with textiles for companies like Momentum to your own company's furniture projects. Can you describe this for our audience?
Yes, so really there's three primary categories, that being standard, alliance, some organizations call it graded in, and then also COM, or customer's own material. So standard is really the proprietary patterns, and then also partnering with distributors and mills to curate an offering that works really well on our product, that has the market drivers behind it, and that's really easy to specify. We know that it's going to work on a breadth of offering. And then with alliance or graded in, these are all patterns that really enhance the standard offering. So we're able to introduce pattern and additional texture, on-trend colorways, that sort of thing. But it's easy for customers to specify, because it is graded in and it's tested on our products. And then of course there's customer's own material. So using and leveraging patterns and materials from other organizations that has not been tested, but will need to be tested on product to ensure application, performance, that it can be upholstered and look really great on the product.
I'm sure that feels like the Wild West sometimes when you're getting a new
It certainly
material.
can be. It certainly can be, yes.
Yep. So Maggie, from the perspective of the furniture manufacturer, how are each of these categories of textiles dealt with at the factory level?
Yeah, I mean, we treat them very very similar to how you do at Haworth. I mean, we have our textiles which are tested and approved on all of our products. So when they come through, our manufacturing team just knows what to do. They do it really easily. They're familiar. They're comfortable. And then with our partner cards, we have to test them to make sure that they work on the product. So we kind of float them in with our graded in textiles. And then for COM, I mean, we have a huge database of approved and tested products. I mean, we've seen a lot of beautiful textiles come through, and we test them all to make sure that they work. I think as we're testing them, we're doing it, making sure that they work, like glue and stitching and all of that. But I also think that our team, we think of ourselves as a upholstery shop, and our team really, really cares and is passionate about that. And a lot of the times, it's not necessarily a rejection. It's more of a like, hey, we want your product to look its best. This is just a flag that you've picked a really, really like crunchy vinyl for this really cozy chair, and we're kind of raising our hand to say, maybe the sales rep, you want to go back and say like, should we look at that? Maybe we think about it a bit differently. So that's
sometimes it'd be nice to have somebody help me when I'm getting dressed to tell me those same things.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as far as let's spend a few minutes talking about these challenges and any advice you can offer to designers. So for Shantel, what happens next if one of your fabric fails an application?
Yeah, so if you pick a fabric and it's going to fail an application, I think the best thing is to reach out to your rep, right? I think we can help work with the manufacturer to see if we can get that fabric to work on the chair. We can sometimes add a different finish to make it work. Or we might help you in the reselect process. But the key is really understanding what's going to work on the variety of chairs. So I love this title, Fit Like a Glove, because it's like a joke. Like there's a million pieces of furniture out there, so to design a fabric that's going to work on everything is absolutely impossible. So we're here to help you. If you come into that situation, definitely reach out to your rep, and I'm going to work directly with the manufacturer to try to make it work on that chair.
And how about Maggie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think it's really a conversation between the textile supplier and manufacturer and us. I think there's always backings and different elements that we can add to it. I like to think of textiles on product the same way, like you said, when you're getting dressed. It's really, you find materials and shapes that fit on your body, and it's no different to a product. So it really is kind of finding that harmony between the texture and the shape of the product that's really important.
And I feel like this is a great segue into understanding kind of innovations and what are impacting the perfect pairings. So Andrea, are you working on anything that's really just interesting and innovative in your process?
Yes, yes. So digital knitting. Here's just a quick example of some of the projects that we have worked on that we can share. But there's so much that you can do with digital knitting. I mean, digital knitting has been in the apparel industry for quite some time, and we started to leverage it right around a decade ago. And just the ability to, for it to be either a decorative element or truly supportive and performance driven. So there's a couple examples. It's actually the ones on either side, on the left and the right. We're able to dial in the performance within the actual construction of the material. So, you know, Louis Sullivan, form follows function. Well, in this case, it truly is form equals function. From a sustainability standpoint, we're knitting to fit the product. So these truly do fit like a glove. They are designed for the product and only work on that specific product. There's no waste, it's knit. So from a sustainability standpoint, that's really exciting. But the opportunities are endless with it.
That's amazing. And Shantel, how about you? Anything to add?
You know, I think the thing that I would talk about for new technologies is we're really focused on new materials. So constantly looking for ways to bring in better material choices. We're always concerned about human health. And so we want to make progress in the industry. That's one of the things that we put a lot of focus on, is how can we improve our products year over year. So sometimes we're taking existing products and actually changing the composition of them to make them healthier, to make them better for the environment. I know you guys are working on, you have a new bio-based coated fabric. We're doing the same thing. We're looking at a lot of bio-based materials that we can incorporate into our products.
And so what is the impact of the new technologies and potential for the perfect pairing of textiles for the future? So Maggie, playing with additive manufacturing through 3D printing, what does that look like?
Yeah, so
Sound more and more like a friend.
we use 3D printing. I've kind of added a photo, the one on the right here, or yeah, this one. And we kind of use 3D printing when we are coming up with the details of the chair. So in this photo, you can see we're trying to figure out how the arm detail meshes with the back. It's really important to factor in the textile in that conversation, because if you're not leaving space for the textile, if you're not considering how the stitching will impact the connection points, you're going to end up with a product that when you're trying to upholster it, it won't work. It will be tricky. It will not have that soul and heart that you're looking for, and the details of the product really are the heart of the piece. So that's kind of how we're using it to really make sure that we're factoring in the textiles.
And does the 3D printing allow you to be more exploratory as well? Yeah,
exactly. We can really look at how we're putting it together, and it allows our engineering team, I mean, I'm not doing it, but they're really playing with the spacing and, oh, if we attach it this way, then it's crushing, and what happens if there's a thick textile? Is it gonna crush? We're only accounting for really thin, stretchy. Don't forget that that's not always the case. So it really allows us to factor all of those in and test it before we've gone down the full tooling process and everything like that.
So something I like really hearing is that even though it's technology and we're moving things forward, that there still really is that human interaction with it, and that there's still a level of care and heart into it that I think sometimes with technology, it's kind of that, what does that mean? But just hearing that there's still such a fingerprint that's on it, that the person is still involved is really exciting. And then, so Shantel, for digital display of textiles, that's been around for years now. Is there any new innovation in use of this tool?
Well, so one of the things that we do have these partnerships, and we have what we call card programs with them, and now we're doing a lot of our programs digitally. So if you are working digitally, you can go on and see what our offering is with these manufacturers. Oftentimes you can click right on screen, gather all your spec data, see what the inventory is right away. So really easy to specify from this digital tool. And our marketing team constantly is focusing on better and better images for you guys to have it on the furniture, to be able to see it really easily, to be able to take that design and repeat it out if you need to. So we're constantly updating and trying to provide better and better imagery.
And as far as as the imagery is being updated, how long does it take you to kind of have it on your website and live and ready to go?
Oh, it takes us several months to be ready to go. Yeah.
Well, I think that's just because it's just so interesting to hear. So, because we're talking about it and it's this summary of all of this work and all of this time and all these hours. So to hear that there's like, oh no, there's this whole, process behind the scenes. I think that's what a lot of us would like to hear about, is that there's the pretty story and the pretty picture that we all tell our clients, but we also know that behind the scenes that we're all trying to really figure out and solve and tailor for things. So it's really just interesting to hear it on this level. So what factors are critical to successful pairings to move us towards circular models so we can stop adding furniture to landfills? So Andrea, how do you think Haworth addresses this?
Yeah, well, okay, the good news is that we're all designing for the longevity. We're not making fast furniture. You hear a lot about fast fashion right now. I mean, we're designing for the long haul. We're designing for 10, 20 years, sometimes 30 or 40, depending on refurbishment or reupholstery. So I mean, that's the good news. But also from a design standpoint, looking at the construction of the product with recycled materials, recyclable materials. Can it be disassembled easily with removable fasteners? Looking at how the upholstery is it formed to the product? Is it glued? Is it not glued? Is it, is there a drawstring? So looking at all of those different things, if you do need to refurbish or repurpose. And then of course, end of life. Can the materials be recycled? Can they serve a different life before they get to the landfill? But then from a textile standpoint, of course, there's the recycling, but what are the natural materials out there? There's all sorts of yarn innovations with biodegradable polyester, so that's a really exciting platform to work with. But I think it's really fantastic that we're in an industry that stands the test of time in many instances, and that we're designing for many decades down the road.
Well, and I think that's what a through line through kind of not just furniture, the design process, but I think we're all trying to strike that balance between what's the latest and greatest, what's next, but also how are we making things that are timeless or that can be used longer, so we don't have kind of that fast ideology that maybe fashion has kind of gone down that road. So for textiles are entwined with furniture at the end of life. So Shantel, how can fabric companies like Momentum also help with that kind of circularity?
Yeah, I think it's one of our biggest challenges, right? Because once that textile gets on the chair, you have a disassembly problem. Everybody knows people aren't taking their chairs apart at the end of their life right now. So we really need to push for ways to make that happen. We have worked a lot on the recycling of the textile itself. We just need to be able to get that textile back. So working on programs with yarn manufacturers to be able to take our textiles back. We're able to do that now with polyester and nylon, and we continue to look for ways to make that happen. But it is one of our biggest challenges.
And as far as for how we're looking at color now too, because I do think it's so interesting to see how color cycles kind of, well, they're cycles. So how we can be also adding on products that kind of complement or continue stories that maybe were told to kind of keep them feeling fresh and modern. So for that, do you see that you're looking to engage with colorway as well as the as part of extending the stories of the fabrics making sense in the design?
I think we're always making sure that if we have a new color that we're introducing, it's going to have some life to it. We don't want to, you know, put in, we love some fashion and trend colors, but we try to, you know, make them where they're going to have a classic feel so they can have a long life to them. They don't have to be replaced. And we're certainly trying to build the textiles to have longevity. So we always aim for, you know, having very long life. We would love every textile to last for 10 years or more.
Yeah. And I'm curious with both of you, how are you balancing that level of, yes, innovation and trends, but kind of a more holistic and a bigger lens? Andrea, maybe you first.
I think, you know, you have that balance of expressive and restrained from both a textile design standpoint, but then also from a color palette standpoint. You know, we really base a lot of our patterns on this, you know, this core neutral, you know, with the warm and the cool and the blend of the two, but then having the more either expressive colors or expressive patterns. But I think that having a more restrained kind of standard offering that has the pops of on-trend colors that we can recolor. So say it's a really just classic, timeless pattern, having the ability to recolor that pattern over the years keeps it fresh and new. I mean, we have a handful of patterns in our offering that we've had for, do I dare say, you know, 30, 40 years. But because it's so classic and timeless, it really stands the test of time.
Yeah. And Maggie, how about you?
Yeah, I think similar to what Andrea said, we really try to launch our basic textiles that really, like, we refresh the colors as needed, but we try to add those timelessness in. But I think for us, we really try to create product that's incredibly timeless. And so if you pick a timeless textile and you have a timeless product, it really does last, and our warranty and our durability is there. And I think when you're looking at sustainability, what goes into the product is just as important as what goes on it. And so I think making sure that when you're picking a textile that's sustainable, you're also picking a piece that's sustainable, and really looking at how those sustainability elements are pairing together. Because at the end of the day, one has to work with the other.
And I'm going to throw them all a little bit of a curveball right now, because I think my favorite thing also is, like, what is getting you out of the bed in the morning? Like, what is something that you're, like, really excited or passionate about that you're seeing from either the industry at large or from your specific focus that you're like, wow, this is something that I'm excited about? I'll start with Maggie this time. I'll go this way.
I mean, I think for me, what I'm really excited about is just the real push that I've seen over the last few years for sustainability. It's not really kind of just a wash question, like, yeah, we do it, it's fine. I think based on the conversation that even we've been having and the conversations that I've been having over the past few days, people are really, really asking questions. I was presenting some of the best of NeoCon judges, and, you know, they're asking really smart, clever questions, and they really care. And I feel like there's really been a shift, and I think that's really exciting, because obviously there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and I think that is kind of very hopeful and inspiring to see. So that's what I'm excited about.
I feel, so I've been touring a client around this week, and it's gone from, is it sustainable, to the expectation that it is, and wanting to know the features and what about it, rather than wondering if it is or not.
Exactly, yeah.
So how about for you, Andrea?
Well, and just to build on that, I mean, sustainability, I mean, it's a big topic, and it should be, but that we're not sacrificing the texture and the color, and that's what really gets me excited is, okay, we're caring about the planet, we're caring about, you know, the textiles and the content, the recyclability, but also, I mean, I'm a big, like, texture and color girl. I have my own ceramic studio, and so looking at, like, the different color combinations and how I can bring that into, like, textiles and textile design, and just the blending of art and science. So not only in the art that I do and how that translates into textiles, but then also the science component with sustainability and the performance of textiles.
Amazing. Shantel?
So I think similar for us, it's about new materials, and that is all wrapped around the sustainability, right? So being able to learn about a material you've never worked with is kind of what excites me. We don't always know how to work with it or how to bring it into full-scale production, but working with things like, how do you take tree sap and be able to turn that into a material that you can replace an existing not so healthy material with. Like, those are the things that excite me because it keeps me learning, it keeps me, keeps my brain fresh and pushes me to have to think really differently. And then also, I was gonna say color, color drives everything. So to be able to work with color every day is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I do want to make sure we have plenty of time for more of a conversation, but I want to give all of you just an opportunity. Is there anything else that you'd like to be able to highlight or talk about before we open it up to some questions?
I can start. I would just say, use your sales rep when you're specifying. They're the experts. If you have questions, punt to them. Let them help you. Let them help you make your decisions, but also know your manufacturers, because like Keilhauer, you were talking, they're really great. They're gonna be able to take whatever textile you want and try to make it work. But not all manufacturers have a setup to do that. Some of them are very focused on volume. And so know your manufacturers, know who's gonna be able to service you for what your needs are for that project.
That's a great point.
Just to add to that, so not only reaching out to your reps, but the consideration of the material, the content, and then also the form of the product that you're specifying, and ensuring that either with pattern matching, or is it a texture or this really luxurious solid that highlights that form. So just be mindful of the material that you're specifying and the product, and make sure it fits like a glove.
Yeah, bring them together.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with both of these, but I think I would also just like to say that have fun with it, I think, because for me, going into the factory every day and seeing kind of some of the craziest, boldest choices, and you look at it and you just think, really, is that gonna work? And then you see the install shot and it just really makes the whole space, and it's so lovely to see the creativity kind of flow through. So I know we've kind of been listing all these things that you need to keep in mind and how to make sure that your piece looks good, but I think having that creativity and that boldness is really important. So don't shy away from having fun.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great way to segue into opening up some questions from everybody from the audience.
We have a couple of mics, so if you'd raise your hand, we want to get to you quickly just so everybody can hear. So I know everybody thinks they speak loud, and you don't, actually. So I'll come over here for the first one.
Hi. How do you foresee the advancement in technology of textiles changing color palettes in the future?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Wow. I love that question. I think we're really going to see some changing with dyes in the future. I think there's going to be a lot of changes with what we can do with pigments. So I don't know a lot about it, but I've started to do some research, and I think that has the opportunity to provide color that we've maybe actually never seen quite the intensity in a textile. Maybe some opportunity to have color change over time. So I think, I don't know today what that looks like, but I do know that there has been a lot of interesting developments in the area of pigments. So
I'm really interested from a digital printing standpoint. I mean, we're seeing more and more that's coming into play, and I'm excited to see, from a pigment perspective, but then also, it's just a really easy way to customize. Mm-hmm. So for specific projects and whatnot, I'm really excited to see where digital printing goes.
Mm-hmm. I'm just excited to see what they do.
So my name is Janice, and I'm from Michigan, and I am the owner of a 100-page digital historical newspaper, and I'm very interested in taking it to the next level, from textiles, fabric, wall covering, upholstering. What would you suggest, or who would you suggest I contact, and how would I move it forward?
Ooh. I don't know. That's a good question.
I know a couple years ago, digital was not even a conversation with most, but I'm hearing more and more that it's an option now. And I know there's some restrictions as far as fabric and textiles, but I'm very interested in doing that.
So I'll make a shout out. If there's anybody in the room that can help this woman, maybe the two of you could pair up afterward. That'd be great if we could make some of those connections here today. So up here in front.
Hi, everyone. Great job today. To add to the technology question, I'm curious about AI. How do you see that impacting design in terms of textile design and product design?
So I think, AI is something that everybody has to get their head around and start to embrace, or you'll be left behind. It doesn't have to replace us as designers, but we definitely have to figure out how to use it. So I know at Momentum, we've added an AI search on our website. And so you can add your own image, you can put in your descriptions, and it's going to pull up all the textiles or wall coverings that the AI search brings up. So I think that's one way we're addressing it. But from an actual textile design perspective, we're starting to play with different platforms of AI. We still want to be really authentic. We still want to be the designers, but we're starting to look at how can we use it to enhance what we do? How can we use it to be a springboard for our ideas so that we're able to get more ideas out there and generate lots of concepts up front. So it may not be doing all the final work, but it might be getting us started. So I know for me, I've been spending the last few months just figuring out how do you fine tune your entry, like what do you enter into AI to get back what you're looking for? And that is a skill in and of itself. So that's how we're playing with it right now.
Yeah, and very similar, using it for inspiration, and the tricky part is the inputs, and getting those inputs to. You kind of have an idea, but then it's interesting to see. Okay, well, how does it interpret and whatnot? So
Yeah. I would say it's more of a tool. It's not the end game. I think it's learning and figuring out how to use it to help you move your process along maybe quicker or more seamless. I know we all know that time is an issue, so I think it's a tool to help you kind of add additional hands or maybe gain some hours here and there. So.
Yeah. Jennifer, we have one back here.
Hi, so my question is about PFAS and the California legislations. I'm just wondering what you all have done to kind of prepare for Prop 65. And also, I think it's CA 1817 that will disallow the sales of textiles with PFAS in it, and specifically how you work with your vendors around that.
Yeah, so I'd love to answer that question. I would say I think we were lucky enough to be ahead of the game. Momentum Textiles, because we are, focused on sustainability. Way before these laws were starting to be put into place, we decided that it was not a healthy option to add the PFAS onto fabrics. And so we actually started designing our products to be PFAS free like 10 years ago. So a lot of our introductions over the last 10 years have really been without adding that into the textile. And where we did have inventory and product that did carry the PFAS soil repellents, we were able to take that out. So we are 100% PFAS free in our textile offering.
And very similar with Haworth. We haven't worked in that platform for some time, but we did have some optional coatings. So we've been converting that so where we still have the performance, but we still have that option for our customers.
Yeah, and I think on our end, we've been working with our suppliers to connect with them and make sure that the textiles that we offer do not have PFAS. I think we're almost at 100%, and where we're not, we're really pushing and trying to figure out and reselecting and having those conversations around what can we do, can we support you, how do we kind of move forward from there. So it's definitely an active conversation, but we're working through it.
Definitely have time for a few more questions, so here, coming. and I'm just going to throw this out there because these ladies are all very humble. Getting the PFAS out of your materials and your supply chain, it is exceedingly difficult. So I kind of want a little round of applause if you guys would indulge me. This is really great news. We're just advancing the industry, and we just thank you for that. So go ahead.
You mentioned digital printing being something you're interested in seeing how it progresses, and in my experience, digitally printed textiles don't have the same kind of quality that a woven product does, and I'm just curious if you have any insights into how the process might be evolving to produce a higher quality material at the end of the day.
Well, and that's what I'm curious to see, because right now, you know, we're starting to see more and more examples of it. There's recent introductions and whatnot, but I'm interested to see okay, what does that base material look like? What sort of hand does that have? And then is there something that can be done from a dimensional standpoint in terms of, I mean, I know that with the digital printing, you're not going to be able to get that, you know, loft and whatnot that you would in a true woven. But to see from the ink perspective, like how can we leverage that from a dimensional standpoint? So yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes.
I was gonna say, I don't know who you are, but I love you because I'm a weaver and woven product to me is so much better than a digital printed product. So you can never get that intricate look that a woven design gives you. But where I think the digital comes into play is on coated textiles, where you have a coated textile and you want it to look woven, and then you can use that as a way to, you know, make that coated look softer because it's looking like a woven textile does. But I'm with you hands down all day long. The wovens shine in my eyes. So.
Yeah, and where you really need the performance from the coated, but you want the woven look. Yeah.
Well, I'm up here and I have another question. So in all of my conversations, I really like to focus on early career designers, or in all of our industries, whether they're on the furniture, the textile. All three of you are in such amazing places in your career. If you had, you know, something to guide them or some advice to give, I'd be really curious to hear that.
Yeah. Be a sponge. Yeah. Learn all that you can, have fun, explore, experiment, fail often, learn from it, continue to move forward. Textiles, color, and I also support colors and finishes at Haworth. It's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. So experiment.
Yeah, don't be perfect. Yeah. Don't even try, because it takes the fun out of everything. Yeah. So make sure you know, I'm a big believer, like, keep learning. If you're not learning something, then you're just gonna be stagnant. So keep learning and put yourself around people who put learning as a priority, and be innovators. If you aren't, you know, challenging yourself with innovative ideas, it's the best thing for you. It just keeps you energized and keeps you excited about what you do.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I mean, I think mentorship is really important. Finding a mentor, someone, or a few people ideally, is great because you can get a bunch of different perspectives. But I think early on in my career, I had a few people really help me and guide me, and their guidance was invaluable to kind of where I've ended up. And then I would say, just don't say no to anything, because I'm up here on a panel right now and I said yes. So just lean in and kind of go for it. It's always more fun than you think it will be.
You guys touched on the COM level of application and the kind of beginning of the presentation, and more Maggie, since you showed that 3D printed kind of slide right there, can you guys elaborate a little bit more on the testing process and just approvals, just getting into that detail a little bit?
Yeah. So when we're testing product, we're really looking at, there's a couple kind of baseline elements. So what's the weave like? Is it kind of looser? If it's a product that needs glue, I mean, we try to move away from that, but there's still a requirement on some pieces, and there is the issue with seepage, so does it need a backing? I think piping, if you're going to a textile that is extremely thick, like a mohair, and you're picking a piece that has piping or really intricate detail, it's extremely hard to do, and you will end up kind of losing that detail. So I think that's something that will then have your textile kind of rejected, or if not rejected, kind of just more of a like, you're losing this detail, maybe relook at it. If you're fine with that, then we'll do it for you, but you're losing kind of that heart and soul of the piece. I mean, the details are really what make the product sing. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And then, you know, we explore with our manufacturers, like, do we add a backing? We can kind of make it work for you. And then if you're doing stripes, you know, if you're doing a piping, it's cut on a bias, so it won't exactly line up. Or if it's a really curvy piece, your lines aren't going to be extremely straight. So I think those are things to keep in mind, and we try to help, and our reps guide people. But those are kind of the baselines that we test for, and then everything else is kind of a conversation from there. So.
More questions? Awesome. Well, with that then, we maybe give you a few minutes. I'm sure our panelists would be happy to stick around for a minute if you wanted to chat with them afterward. They probably want me up here. Sorry. But thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of BIFMA and ACT, thank you, Megan. All of you panelists just brought wonderful perspectives and how you played off each other. And yeah, just thank you, audience, for joining us today for this idea of fits like a glove, the perfect pairing of textiles and furniture. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.